Well, hello, and welcome back. I'm Andrew O'Neill, and today we're doing, I guess it's not really a code review as much as a docs review, but we're doing a docs review. So this is a company I've done some work for, and I think that the developer I've interfaced with over there is the one that created this. And I'm just right off the bat, I like that it has the list of the types of the things, and it's got bodies and responses for this stuff. It's kind of nice to see the just the big list. I'd actually prefer it if it would scroll all the way down and let me be able to Control F or Command F to be able to see everything at a glance. I much prefer single page to multi-page for documentation, but I like that this is outlined in this way. That's pretty nice. And then my goal here is actually I'm supposed to create an application that is going to go through some registered users and get some data and metadata and put it in a file. So I'm just doing a little bit of pseudo backend code for this is my task. And then I'm going to give my feedback along the way as we go. So we go ahead and get my terminal ready. And I'm going to go ahead and create a project folder for this. Oh, I already got a project folder. Good. And I don't know what we should call it. I actually don't even know what the name of this thing is. Maybe I can go to the GitHub page and find out. Oh, and before we get too far ahead here, let's go ahead and have a quick word from our not a sponsor, Mr. Mountain Dew. Pop top, my friends. It's time to open focus. Ah, beautiful. Beautiful. Okay. So, oh, what was the name of this? Um, I don't know. I'm just going to call it uh, API demo then. All right. And I actually am going to go ahead and create a Git repo for this. I'm going to create it off of my, off of my personal account here. We'll make this a new repository and let's see, API demo. I kind of call it Club VC API demo. And let's see, do I want to just make it private and then share with Michael Pierce here? I think I can do that. Let's try that. Toot, 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 toot. Okay. So I'm going to keep it private just because I don't want it to show up in Google search or anything. Unless they decide that it's a good example and they want to do that, in which case we'll transfer it over to their organization. So a demo of the user management API. Okay, add a README. I'm going to do this in Node because I think that's what they most expect, and I'm going to go ahead and put this under the MPL for now. In this particular case, the Creative Commons 0 is probably the more appropriate license. Okay, so there we go. He said it doesn't need to be a proper project, but I don't really do not proper projects, or at least I try not to. So I just won't. I think we're going to cap this at about an hour and a half. Let me see how far I get. Shouldn't probably won't take that long even. Okay. All right, so he's got some stuff that I should maybe try to access. There's a bunch of dummy users. Use the API, get some stuff. Oh, and then I do have an API key. Give me just 1 second. I need to open up another window here and drop my API key into env.secret. Oh, and this looks like a JWT. That's good. I always appreciate that. So first thing I need to do is a lot of the get ignores. Okay, they ignore .env and .env.test. They really should just ignore .env.star. And then for my own sanity, I'm going to ignore .star, .sw star. Those are vim swap files. And then I think most of the other stuff is already ignored. Okay, so this would be security ignore .env.star. Okay. Alrighty. So let me just read through the documentation here. Oh, one thing right off the bat, both these sites, this is a small thing. Just set the favicon. Just set it something that's not, the default generic. I mean, even if you just set it to nothing, set it to the world icon. But it's I just think it's tacky that in the first place these frameworks even have their icon be the default. I think that's tacky, and I think it's tacky even to have development sites that just have that. Just get rid of the icon if you don't have one, or put the company icon. All right. This is doctor it a little bit, maybe to put it on Fiverr to get somebody to do a pixel version or something, or just put a brackets around it. Do something, make it devy. Okay, documentation site for the software and APIs still under construction. Feel free. API can be interfaced with any language. Supports making HTTP requests. Examples throughout the documentation. Written in TypeScript, using types interfaces, reproduce just types, and describe JSON objects. Also use the Axios to make HTTP requests. Hopefully soon to be replaced with fetch. Okay, most of the time. Yep. Okay. Base URL. I think that it's nice that Axios does this, but this is the kind of thing that is so incredibly simple that side note, I wish that it was more of a pattern of copy and paste rather than using a library, because you're just creating a function that wraps something with a variable that's put in a scope. Okay. Get user data. That's kind of confusing, honestly. Is this trying to say that this is going to be? I would prefer. This is one thing I'd say. Just put it in JavaScript and then just put a comment with what type it's going to be. Use a JS doc or something, because that's a lot easier to read than this type of template stuff. I guess what this is trying to say is that if I do a get, it's going to use this as a template, and then data is going to. Is it saying that result is going to be that template, or is it saying to cast this function? I don't know. It's just whatever. JavaScript's just a little easier to read than TypeScript. Okay, the send determining type. Yeah, so it's doing a kind of a template cast. Okay, write an API definition for me. Yeah, I do like, so a lot of times companies release an SDK, and I think it would be a good idea to release an SDK just because of the SEO and whatnot. But I like just saying, look, this is how simple it is. Now, you might want to be more clear, because so people run an instance of the software, or it's white labeled or something. So my cool site, I would say put the demo site in the documentation maybe. Okay, but all right, cool. So this is good. It's a very nice little overview there. Hey everybody, how's it going? Feel free to ask questions about Go, JavaScript, Zig, or other stuff, Linux, POSIX. All right, so nice. Oh, this is a really nice build system. Michael, I'm assuming you built this. Is this available uh, somewhere? It's probably TypeScript specific, but I like what you've got here. It is really nice. Whoops, I didn't want to do that. Let me make sure I add you onto my repository that I'm making here. Oh, my security key. Where's my security key? Let me plug that in. I unplugged it the other day. I want to get a second one to carry with me on my wallet. Funny thing is that you have to tap it twice because the first tap essentially just presses enter on that screen. Okay, so we're going to add people by username. Yep, that's the one. Cool. All right, so it should be a long live key. Token signature can be used to authorize. Okay. So I would, if this is a route, I would say always prefix it with slash so that it's clear. And honestly, I would say just put the demo URL, the full demo URL, so that I can always copy and paste it. Passing. Okay, what is it? Oh, I did not like that. I did command click, and instead of opening in another tab, it took me over here. Please tell me that if I hit back, okay, well, at least, okay, that works. Because a lot of times that happens and the back button doesn't work, and that's really hard to use. Okay, export interface body key string. What? Token. Okay, this is not actually helpful. Passing. Make a post call to I would put the example further up, and actually I'd suggest having a curl example so that it's a little bit, well, some of this maybe doesn't work that way. Okay. But try to get a smaller example further up and then the explanation a little bit further down maybe. Okay, because I can, yeah, I prefer curl. I mean, this would just be more clear in curl. Okay, post call to set, and that definitely needs the slash though. That's non-negotiable. Slash auth slash token passing API route body. But this is part I don't understand. Key string. Export interface body key string. What does this mean? Is this just saying a generic map? API token. Oh, is this supposed to be the API key? So this should not go in the body. This should go in the header. Okay, and then the response token. Wait, okay, because I see what you're doing here. You're basically saying you're going to take the long-lived token and you're going to refresh it with a short-lived token. I think you actually said that somewhere in here, but it's a big wall of text. It's kind of, I don't know. I don't like to read as much as I like to see examples. Okay, make a post call, passing. Yeah. Is there some place somebody would get these types? Are these types exported somewhere? Do you import them? Let's see, type equals. Yeah, where do you import these from? What SDK provides these? Because this is a little too for what you start out with. Yeah, this is something that you can use in any language. Curl is the universal language for HTTP requests, and occasionally you can't use curl directly because you have to have some sort of, you have to decode something from base 64, you have to encode something, or you have to sign something with a signature. uh, auth tool, the Google's auth tool can help with some of that stuff. Key pairs can help with some of that stuff. webinstall.dev/key pairs. I highly recommend this. This is a little Go utility that will help you generate and sign and verify and inspect JWTs and JWKs and other tokens and keys and stuff. So you can give people examples with that. That's obviously not universal like curl is, but it could be. Okay, set authorization token to token.signature. That doesn't quite make sense. Is there an actually useful curl cheat sheet? Why don't you put that on my list of things to do, Elon? Are you in the Beyond Code Discord? Will you put that in the content requests? Because I would like to honor that. The documentation for curl is miles long. What I actually use of it is very, very small. I could easily make a cheat sheet with, I don't know, maybe 10 options that I use ever. There might be one of those dev hint sites or TLDR or something. So this doesn't quite make sense to say token.signature. It should be token itself. Okay, so all right, let's back up a little bit. There are standards for tokens, and it looks like you're kind of using some of them. Let me go ahead and inspect this a little bit further on the other screen here. Yeah. Okay, so you've got a JWT here. Let me go ahead and use key pairs to inspect that. So I will redact the signature off of this. Let me, 1, 2, 3, key pairs, inspect. Okay, so if I just redact the signature, I can bring this over to the other screen. Let me see about this. Because the signature is the part that is particularly important. But the signature is part of a token. It is not the token. The token is not the signature. Okay, let me move this over and go 1 down and 1 up. Okay, so this is what I was given. And this is a little bit strange because it looks as though there is the payload of the token looks kind of like another token, which that's kind of weird. And a little unexpected, although technically I think that is valid per spec. Okay, so data, input issuer. So this is a little bit messed up. Something went wrong here. So the claim should have ISS is issuer, and it shouldn't be admin. It should be the URL. So it should be the website at which can be found the .well known to that has the public key to verify the token. But this one is HS256. So you could use keypairs.js and make that RS256 instead. I don't know what all the stuff you're using, but this is less secure, less scalable. The public-private key pair is more appropriate, but this is a little bit weird. So inputs, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So generally, the claims are meant to be somewhat user-friendly or valuable to the client to understand something about the user. So this is normal. This is wrong. This is actually off spec. This is supposed to be a URL. Subject would typically be the ID. So I think that some data crept in that got duplicated. My guess is that this is probably actually the subject. The subject is a free-form identifier. Typically, it's a pairwise identifier, meaning that it's a mix between an application ID and a user ID. But it could, if it's just the first-party application, it could just be a user ID. But issuer and subject, these don't need to be duplicated here, and this is already something that's well defined. So let me give you the link to this. Let's see, it's OpenID errata 1. So I've got this in my, the wrong one always comes up. So we need core. There we go. Is this the one? This should be bookmarked for me. And then you have down here standard claims. So these are already defined and it tells you what they should be. So that if you have something, you should read through this list. And if you have something that seems kind of similar to one of these, say you've got a first name instead of a given name, or you've got a uh, display name, could be nickname, or, go through and take a look and make sure that if you have something that's pretty similar, just use the standard one. And then you can just reference the standard. This, if you link directly to this is pretty easy to read. It's not as pretty as the documentation page you have, but it is it's the spec. Okay, so let me go back here. Where was that thing at that what? I just had that thing up. Where'd it go? Oh, I was going to look at decoding this as base 64 or something. Let me see. What is this? So I'm just going to do it on the other screen because I don't know if it's an API key or what it is. So I'm doing buffer.from. I'm pasting in that payload string base 64. I guess if it was sensitive, it's already been seen. And then I'm doing to string UTF-8. Okay, data, subject. All right, yeah. So this was, something went wrong here because you have, oh, no. I'm sorry. I was looking at it wrong. Sorry, I was having a brain fart because the payload is the base 64 encoding of the claims. Sorry, I was just, like I said, brain fart. Whoops. So there's JWT and JWS, and the signed object has to be base 64 encoded. So protected is the header portion, payload is the claims portion, and then there's the signature, which I just showed. So now we have to rotate that that key, although it's just a demo key, so it doesn't matter that much. All right. Anyway, so my goal here is just to get some users. I mean, if you are catering towards C# and Java developers, then maybe this makes sense. But this is a little bit heavy on the TypeScript for things that could be described more simply just with the objects. And, I know that the question mark means null. I don't know that it's generally known that the question mark means null. And then in JavaScript, you have null versus undefined, something being optional, and I'm not sure how you do that. Anyway, I don't know. So query, query, I would assume that that's a query string. So I could do name, email, page, limit. So what if I just don't put a query? Let me try this out. Let me go back here. So I think it actually makes sense to have some sort of process where you renew a token. Let's see, token. Okay, so you're just doing type aliases up here. Okay. Yeah, but you're not showing the imports where those come from again. All right, let token clear token. This looks code smelly to me. Also, this is just hard to read. There's very few languages that have a syntax like this. This is just difficult to read. Just declare it as a function. If you declare it as a function, it makes a lot more sense. It's so much easier to read. This is not a lambda. Set token doesn't return anything, right? So using a lambda with an implicit return doesn't seem to make sense. Okay, so where is set token though? So this is set token. See, and also you got this kind of weird stuttering thing here. Again, this is something that you just don't really see outside of browser code. So what this should be is a token module, and then or a token instance, and then you do token.create, and then maybe token dot, well, I don't know that you need to destroy it. Just let it get garbage collected when you're done with it and create a new token. But I mean, let's say that you did it in the global, what do we call it, singleton pattern. Then you have token dot set token dot clear, not clear token set token, because that stutters because you got some token module. Anyway, also using if without curly braces, don't do it. This. Do you see how this is kind of confusing to read? It needs the curly braces. Okay, so authorization. All right, this is also incorrect. So this should actually be, you could use a template string for this. I'm just going to go ahead and update it and show you what this should look like here. So we're going to do, what this should be is, let me actually edit as HTML. Oh no, it's supposed to be right here. Oh, I need to update this whole thing. Oh no. Oh no, it's a bunch of spans. There's no actual hierarchy to it. That's okay. I mean, that's what we expect for code highlighting, right? Okay, authorization equals. So what you'd want is bearer token property signature like that. So now this is what this should be. Is you need to set it as a bearer. It needs to have a specifier. So you can have basic, you can have digest, you can have bearer. And this is something that you can update your API and not have anything that's existing break. But this is a standard. You could also, I've also seen API key and token. Bearer is more for standard tokens. This is obviously, well, I say obviously because of the name of it. What this might mean is signed rather than signature. I could see that. Okay, authentication. So post. Yeah, this is just really hard to read. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, if you did this in JavaScript, you could just say at returns auth result. And then you're not making your lines so long. But this probably needs to be extended out to not be, so the width isn't so crammed here. Okay. Again, don't skip on. I mean, I'm gonna stress this. I think we talked about this before, but you really need to be using prettier, and I prefer JS hint. But if you decide to go the ESLint route, that is a viable option. But you must be using prettier and a linter. You can't just. I mean, you can, but it's just so hard to read when you've got your own bespoke style rather than just using the standard stuff. And standard stuff's kind of hard. Most languages have a fumped command, FMT, for format that will do what prettier does. And most languages have a built-in lint or a canonical lint that will basically tell you what's allowable via the grammar of the language, but not acceptable as a way of writing code. Because the reason that you can do this with an if is because when you create, when you use a bracket, that's valid for an expression. So an expression is also valid without the bracket. And so it just so happens that if you don't put the bracket, there's a bug in the language that is, it's a little too permissive. And rather than narrowing down to say if block expression, it just says if expression. And the common convention is that an expression that's with an if starts with a curly brace, but it's not enforced by the grammar. So you're kind of taking advantage of a bug, and then the code is more difficult to read because if you just had the brackets, then this would be easier to have on its own line rather than wrapping over. But again, part of it's because of how narrow the viewport is here. Okay, so refresh. Did we actually have, do we have something like a refresh timer in here? Let me see what this says. Yeah, so there is no, yeah, so you basically, you're creating some sort of, uh, this would be so much simpler in curl. In fact, I'm going to prototype this out in curl rather than in node, just so you can see what this looks like. So we're going to do um, an auth.sh, and uh, we're going to do my, so let's say demo, I don't know, club Lisi uh, API equals. I'm just going to grab this here. Is it the full at, what do you do differentiate? So typically what we'd expect is that either it's going to be this thing slash API as the base, or API dot whatever. I like actually doing both. There's no harm in doing both, but your API needs to be segmented off at the very least as slash API. And this gives you protection with your cookies and you basically enable, it makes it easier for you to do your routing with your tokens and your cookies, and keep your security concerns for any cookie enabled assets separate from API enabled assets and such and such. Then also, as you scale, if you need to deploy, to make it easier to deploy things, to cache static assets, yada yada yada, uh, it's just to, have the API in there. So I'm not sure. Well, we'll find out. We'll find out what this is. But let's say that that's the Club Lisi API, Club Lisi, and we'll go all out here. Club Lisi API JWT. Maybe we just call it API, or I don't know what this is. And I'm actually going to source the .env here. Secrets are in .env. I like to, because I'm streaming, I do .env and .env.secret. Anyway, so we're gonna do this. I'll go ahead and put these both in quotes, double quotes, just to be consistent. But I think I called it Club Lisi API key. So we're gonna go with that. And then, okay, good. It looks like it does have the slash API. Okay. So let's do that. And then where are we going next here? So I'm going to get a token. So I need to go fetch. This does not seem to describe the same thing that was described above. Auth token. Is there a token here? Is there an auth token? Auth token. Authenticate. Okay. And then, yeah, this should not be in the body. You can identify with a JWT, you have the ability to identify a special property on it. So you have ID token, access token, and refresh token are the three main ones. And so I think what you have here is a refresh token. But that should still just be passed the same way with bearer. And then you decode the token and you look at it. And you could just say based on the route, based on the fact that it's going to auth token, I know the way that it needs to be decoded. And this probably would be better called refresh, except you're calling this refresh, which is a little bit strange to me because this is where you're going to refresh the token, right? Okay, well, we'll just test it out and see what happens here. I will have credentials going on the screen, but since this is the demo account, I'm not worried about that. Okay. So we'll just say We're going to do curl public, whoops, URL slash what? Auth token, and we want this to be post. Actually, do I even need to do a post? Is that there automatically? And then we need -h to say content type application JSON. Remember, it is just application JSON. Some people mistakenly put a char set there. That is against spec. It will break some parsers. Application JSON is defined as per spec as charset equals UTF-8, and to redundantly put that there is against the spec of the content type. Okay, so with that, I think what we could do here is, so typically I do it like this. Okay, then we have key, and then this gets a little bit weird. Because there's not really a good way to escape this. Well, let me put that in there, and that should go like this. And then we should have club-lc API JWT. Okay. So I think that this is going to give me back a result. So this, and I don't, but if I was going to give this as an example, I would probably not name this quite so long. I'd maybe just call it API or something. Well, with shell scripts, you kind of need longer variable names because of the rules for... Wait, do we not have .env? Okay, we .env. Okay, I probably could just... whatever. I'll leave that alone. All right, so let's just see if this runs here. Oops. Okay, so it does. So this, it says signature, but this is not a signature. This is, I'm guessing that this is an access token. And then it's got a lot of extra information with it, which doesn't really make sense because this already has all of that information in it, or it should. Let's go ahead and pipe this out to JQ. In fact, I'll just go ahead and put this right in here as to JQ. Make sure I got the latest version installed. Good. And then, actually, that's not bash. That is... Okay. So, here we go. Display name, parent name, roles. Okay, that kind of makes sense. So, and I'm imagining if I do key pairs inspect, and I just paste in the token here, this is all the same information. So you're reduplicating the information that you already have. Because if I'm in the browser and I want to decode this, any auth library is going to be able to decode it because it's just base 64. There's nothing special about it. And if you want a little snippet or that's dependency free for decoding that in the browser, here's one right here. So this is parsing a JWT in JavaScript right there. So this is all the code you need to parse that. And the big part of it is simply that the browser's base 64 is standardized differently than the JWT base 64. That the browser requires padding and uses plus instead of minus and uses slash instead of underscore. And so the whole process, mostly it's just, what you see here, but you have to convert from base 64 on those. So, okay, anyway. So user, okay. So this is not a signature. This is a token. So your response, and the responses are also standardized. So if we go back here, there are so it will show some of these things. So expires in, I think, is left over from maybe from OAuth 2, because a lot of the OAuth 2 stuff got adopted into the OpenID standard, because the OpenID standard is basically just a more strict standard of OAuth 2, because OAuth 2 didn't really define anything. Uh, wait, Josue, are you saying man curl? Sorry, I didn't catch that. It was a few minutes ago, maybe. Are you saying that man curl is a useful cheat sheet? I'm going to argue that is not a cheat sheet. That is a book. And the same thing here. So it's standardized. Even the cache headers are standardized. So I believe that that would be called access token, not signature. Okay. All right. Okay, but we're going to go with it. We're going to go with it. I'm going to use this. So what I should be able to do is, let me just go ahead and sh off. I'm going to pipe it to JQ again, but so that I can get dot signature. Nope. Oh, dot token dot signature. There we go. Okay, so check this out, and I can do -R, so I can get it without the quotes. Now, I'm not suggesting that I mean, I think that this is useful. To kind of, let's see, probably make this a little bit simpler. So I think this is, there's, use the refresh token to get an access token. Or actually, I guess that would be the ID token. I'm not really sure. Maybe you do just call it API key. Even though it is in a standard token format. Okay. So then if I want to get this as a signature, or sorry, Club Lisi access token equals, I'm just going to put all this thing in a subshell. What's up, Yuka? Long time no see. And then we're going to put all of this. Let's see here. Yeah, in that case, I always like to put the pipes on the next line. We're going to get it without the quotes on it. And so there I'm going to have my access token, and I should be able to do the next thing. So let's see. The next thing is that I'm going to refresh. What was the process again? Get the response, use the signature, refresh. Okay, I'm just gonna go with refresh here. Oh, bless me. It's complaining because it has never seen this before, or it's not being used anywhere else. It's not seen it before, but it's not being used anywhere else. Opposite problem. Okay, so now I'm gonna copy this again, and we're gonna say, whoops. We're not gonna get necessarily token signature, but we're gonna refresh. Now I wish I had the documentation for libauth in a better place, because all this auth stuff I have, I've come up with a system that I think is pretty darn good, that follows the spec, but is still small and manageable. It's not a big, huge, giant framework. It's called liboff because it's the auth library. Okay, wait. It could not resolve host. What is it upset about? Oh, I put the thing in the wrong place. Oops. Duh. I wanted to do... Oh, and this one. Is this one where now we need to use authorization? Do we do authorization for refresh? Refresh. Post refresh. Oh. So wait. Before we're calling it key and now we're calling it token. I mean, I guess it makes sense if they're supposed to be different things to give them different names, but this should just be authorization header. As I said, I already said that. So there's no need to bang that over and over again. Okay. All right, failed to verify token. Okay, so let me try to read this a little bit more clearly because maybe I skipped something. We're going to use the or we're not refreshing with the access token. Hold on. Refresh token if token set token, where's set token? Set token, data token equals data, but where are we setting token? What does token mean in this context? Set result.data.token. Wait, I thought that was signature. I'm a little confused now. All right, let me try this again. Was there also a token? Token. Oh, it wants the whole thing, not just the signature. Is that what I'm to understand? Yeah, it's good. This is a little confusing. I did this in one place too, where I had something called code, and it was really the data that represented the code, and it's confusing. So I ended up maybe doing worse. I called it code data in many places, but it's still referenced as code in some places. Okay. All right. I don't know what that's useful for. All right. Okay, I think I understand now. So that's being used as the header. So we're gonna say, I'm gonna call this token data, and we're gonna grab all the token data, and then I'm gonna do something similar where I'm gonna say access token, and then I'm just going to echo club Lisi token data JQ dot signature. So this is what I would show as an example, and this is what I'm doing for my own scripting purposes here. And so now this would not be access token, but rather this would be token data. And if I understood correctly, we'd actually, I don't think we need the -r option on that. And then this should be a valid, let's see, JSON object as is. So I think this is going to work now. No, we don't want access token. Sorry. We want token data. Maybe we should call it token JSON. Okay, there we go. And so this one is going to be a new signature. So again, it's kind of an example. So this would be, wait, with what that came out with, would I then replace this with the token object, set token res.data? Yeah, so I would try to make the responses consistent on this so that it has the same depth and nesting, so that I'm not having to apply slightly different logic from one to the next. Just, it's always, if you're going to go with, let's say you go with it's embedded and it's named token, which I think is a bad idea. But if it, so let's say we're going to call it token data. So if you call it token data in one place, call it token data in the other place. Just keep it consistent so the logic and the functions that somebody uses are pretty much identical. Okay, so then token data. And then this, so this one's raw. And then access token would go here. Okay, so now I got the access token. So this would be example 2. So this would be refresh example. So I'm going to mark these so that it's easier to tell what the example is. So this would be, well, it's kind of weird because this in effect is also a refresh. They're both refreshes. But this, well, let's call this API key exchange for, well, we'll just leave it as what it is. Okay, and then next thing here. So now I want to get some users. Users, username, users, user. Yeah, that should be fine as long as usernames are, cannot be duplicated. Profile, that makes sense. Okay. How's it going, everybody? Feel free to drop questions, comments, etc. This is a real API as well. So if you've got any feedback, especially if it contradicts my feedback, it'd be great to have that so I can pass this along. Now, what is this? /users. Okay, so now get users example. Do we have a limit? We do have a limit. What are the defaults? I would imagine there's a default of limit 100 or limit 10 or something. Or I really like it. I think this is the best approach, that you should simply throw an error saying what the minimum and maximum limits are if limit is not provided. Just enforce strict programming. Oh, that's not going to flow. All right. And then, yeah, it's another thing about this is that you've got 3 different ways that you're doing this authentication piece. You're doing a key, you're doing a token, both in the body, and then you're doing the header. And that's a little bit confusing. Okay, I guess we don't need content type, we just need authorization. And again, what this should be, I'm just going to put a to do, should be authorization. If you're set on not using the standard, then rather than call it bearer, I would recommend calling it something like API key. But you need to have some sort of designator as to what the thing is. Typically, This is case insensitive. Typically, this is, well, I make it case sensitive. Might as well. But if it's not an API key, then you could say access token. No, it's not access token. I don't know. Whatever. You know, key, token, whatever you want. Just call it token. Sure. Okay. And then we're going to do users, right? That's what we're doing. We're doing users. So users. Oh, and then I don't need to capture that, right? So authorization and so if I was writing documentation for this, I wouldn't necessarily put all the variables in, or if I did put the variables in, I wouldn't be namespacing them. I'm namespacing them because I guess it's a habit that I'm building for writing POSIX compliant scripts. And then we don't need anything there. And then I think that curl has a capability for doing query parameters. I think if you do F or something dash F, curl query parameters. I think it's F for field, and if it's a get, dash D. Yeah, that's not quite right. Does this work? Okay. So I think it is dash D. So if we wanted to add a query parameter, we can do dash D. And I don't generally do it this way, but I think this actually makes a lot of sense. But I'm not going to do, well, let's try it. Let's do limit equals 1. Protocol error. Okay, let me not do anything there. That may have been wrong. Okay, so something went wrong here. What went wrong? Slash API slash users. Okay, here's something that we need. What? Meta. What is meta name? What's the name? Username meta name. What? I don't know what this means. Username meta name. Meta name patch meta name. Is this saying to get a single property? Users, user meta name value private, user role. Oh, so this is kind of permission. I would say do not call this meta. Give it a name that is descriptive of what it's for, because meta is literally not a descriptor. Meta means about. So about the user. How is user different from about the user? So is this supposed to be user perms? Because also you got name string. So it looks, I would not call this name. This probably should be key value. Key value private and username. Note here you've capitalized the N in username. So whatever inconsistencies you have in your internal code base, your external code base one should be underscores. If you're going to separate something, then use underscores. But look, here you've got display name. I was somewhere else you had nickname. No, I was looking at the spec, and in the spec it's called nickname. So yeah, I'd recommend actually, and I may have been the one that suggested to say display name or something, because that's something I say. I use the word display name, but this should be nickname. If we're describing a object that's reasonably well defined by what's in the OpenID spec. But anyway, username needs to be consistent with a lowercase n. So I don't know if that's a typo here, but again, it should be a pretty quick change through the code base. I mean, if you just did username, so say you did fd type file extension JavaScript or whatever extension HTML, you know, boom, you run that and you could change every place in the code base. And same thing with display name. Of course, that doesn't update your database, and you probably don't want to change your migration files, but just kind of, yeah, so here, this should be given name. This should be family name. I think that's supposed to just be phone. Here, you know, you got parent name, avatar UUID. So get that cleaned up, because that's just confusing. It's going to, I mean, I'm sure it's already led to confusion for you, and it's going to lead to confusion for your users. But anyway, let's get back to this and see, what did I do wrong here? It's also really helpful. This is one thing that bugs me about a lot of API documentation. It's really helpful if you reiterate at the top of every documentation page an example of the full URL, so that I can see the full URL is expected to be /API/users. So I can see anything that's part of the base URL. I don't have to go back and say, oh, you know, because a lot of documentation pages only put the base URL in authentication or in the getting started or somewhere. So you're going around the documentation, you can never figure out, okay, what am I missing? What's the base URL? Okay, let me go back to this. Did I put bearer there? Is that why I messed this up? Hold on. No, I put authorization. Oh, token data. Let's try this. Access token. Okay, that was just my silly mistake then. Okay, cool. So, and then let's go back here and let's color this. And okay, so there is a bug in your application, because I caused your application to crash by giving it some bad header data, which is weird. I don't think that you're actually responsible for that at that point, because I should get an error response with a, is it a, no, 422 is that everything was parsed, but the data was not valid for some semantic reason. Syntactically, it was valid. Semantically, it was invalid. 400, I think, is the correct error code for syntactically invalid stuff. Okay, let's, I want to see if this works. Can I do limit equals 10? All right, let's try this again. Boop, 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 boop. Invalid media type. Okay, I'm gonna try this one more time. Let's explicitly do a get, because I think it changed it to a post. Hey, heyo. All right, cool. That looks great. I like that it gives me the total. That's good. Can I do a limit 0 just so that I can get the totals? I like to try all these edge cases. I won't be surprised if it breaks. Ah, okay. So limit 0 is the same as no limit, or I don't know how to interpret this. How many items did I get? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I guess 10 is the default. I just happened to pick 10. What if I do 20? Will it give it to me? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Nope. Okay, so limit seems... let me actually just double check here. I may actually not be using this as a query parameter. I'm pretty sure there's a way to use that as a query parameter, but I may not be doing what I thought I was doing. So let's see what the URL actually looks like when the URL is built. Okay. Okay, authorization. Get. Oh, interesting. Contents, 8 bytes of data. All right. So I'm gonna try this one more time to look up this information because it would be nice to Ah, dash dash get. Put the post data in the URL. No, just adds the post data to the URL. Okay, let's try this. So I'm learning something new. That's always scary. Okay, and then what were the other things here? So process. No, I'm back at users. Users. Here we go. Username, 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 username. And this, I would say this is not super helpful because you've got redirection here. It would be a lot simpler, especially since this is auto-generated anyway, or is it not auto-generated? It looks kind of auto-generated. Could you not just get it to pull in the actual type information? Because then I have to, and this isn't hyperlinked either, so then I got to go look this up and say, okay, so, and again, partial is something that you'd only know about if you know JSDoc and TypeScript, or rather TypeScript or JSDoc or both or whatever. Okay, so partial user data, then I need to go here, users, and then user, there is no user data. There's nothing that's called user data, or maybe this is user data and it's just missing the name up top. Uh-oh, model data. Oh no, it's creeping everywhere. Okay, so I can, what in the world, how's a user gonna have a parent or a child? Is this a group? Is it a group relationship? Okay. All right. All right, let me go back up to users here. Was it users here? No, here? Yes. Okay, page. Limit. Page doesn't quite make sense because then I have to do more math. Well, I guess because it's page size. It's not limit because if I could be getting page 2, right? So let me go ahead and try this. Actually, I'm going to make it a way bigger number so that it's not mistakable at all. That, you know, sometimes you kind of have to count the difference between 10 and 20. But with 100, you can tell. I can scroll. I can say, yeah, that's 100 all right. Total 1001. This doesn't tell me what page I'm on. And I also don't know by what method it pages, because it seems like it would have to page by some sort of sort order. So let's say I'm on page 2. Is this going to tell me I'm on page 2? It doesn't tell me how many pages there are left. One thing that's really common is you use the, I think it's called link, HTTP link, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, is it link header? Yes. So one thing that's really common is that if you're giving paged output, you use the link header, and the link header will give the URL to the next page. So I don't have to do any math or anything. And if there is no link header, that means I've reached the end of the list. But a problem with this is, let's say that a user gets added while I'm making this series of requests. I'm assuming that it's sorted by creation order. And so if it's being counted from the most recent, is typically what it is. Let's see. Oh, or these are all on the same day, so I can't really see what the order is. The first one, these are older. Each one is older. So this is 45 seconds, and at the top, we've reached 44 seconds, almost 43 seconds. Okay, so is that true if I do page 1? Okay, good. So this is good. That this is really good because it is going to be in what appears to be a deterministic order if it's being sorted by created at. So as long as, does it count people that are deleted? I think it should have a placeholder for, yeah, okay, so good, you've got deleted here. Awesome. That's great. I don't see any deleted users in the API, but that's good because I'd actually want to see a placeholder. There's probably some stuff that shouldn't be there if they are deleted, perhaps their roles or their children or something like that. But it would be good. There's also not a user ID in here. Shouldn't we have a user ID? But it's good that there's a deleted field because then we can have deterministic order. So whatever page I get, if it had deleted items, that page is always the same forever throughout time and eternity. When I get page 1, it's always the same page 1. I like that a lot. That's great. Okay, let's go back here. I don't want to spend too much more time on this without getting some feedback and then seeing if you want me to write actual code for a little mini project. I think the goal here was mostly to review the documentation and kind of pick at it a little bit. All right, so page and limit and email. So let's say, it seems like these would be kind of weird to go together. Well, let's do email equals foo. So this should give us back nothing, right? Items total. Okay. That would be an appropriate case to send back a 422 if you wanted to, because foo is not a valid email. So that is a 422 unprocessable entity. Or a 400 bad request, because it's not syntactically correct as JSON. It's not semantically correct as an email. So I guess it's 420. That's splitting hairs. Who cares? 400, 422, whatever. It's a user error. That's the point. A name. Okay. So name, is this first name? Is it last name? What kind of name is this? Name. Because you're going to have, well, that's unfortunate. Is this display name? Is this nickname? This is username. Okay. I would expect name to give me possible matches. So it's got nothing. Okay. Is that how I spell it? Oh, it is not doing escaping for me. I want it to do the escaping for me. Curl escape parameters. I'm pretty sure it can do this. I looked this up the other day. Data URL encode. Yep, that's the one. Sweet. Okay, so now this should work. Wait, why is that giving me nothing? Did I get the name right? Did I spell it wrong? All right, let me go back here. See what we got. Oh, I need to get rid of that for a second so I can get a page again. Oh, whoops. Could not resolve host JQ. Oh, oopsies. Okay. Oh, I did spell it wrong. That explains it. So let's just see. Okay, it appears that that is not working. Because I tried a partial string. Let me just try one more time. Let me not JQ this just so that if there's an error message, I see it. Okay, so let's just sanity check. I'll go back here. Okay. Did I get? Oh no, name is this thing. Well, what the heck is this? Is that supposed to be username? Because again, be consistent. Call it username, lowercase, conjoined, everywhere. Don't call it name some places, username with a capital N some places, username with a lowercase some places. Just call it the same thing in every place. If a user has a username, that is one case where stuttering is allowed because username is a technical term. So even though it's a user, you can have a user.username. Whoops. User.name, I would expect to be, well, especially because you got first name and last name around and full name and stuff like that. So you got a lot of stuff that's similar that if you have time to pound it out, which it sounds like you probably don't, I'd say get that stuff cleaned up. Because those little things, it's just death by 1,000 paper cuts, you know? And if you just spend a day and you just use some really simple tools like SD and you just go through, rename all the files, do one thing, stage the commit, do the PR, look through, make sure there's not any anomalies where something is being caught that shouldn't be caught. But you could get everything updated. Okay, so what was I doing here? So this is not name, this is user. This is username, which I guess, what were the username? What did they look like? User 136. Okay. All right. So this can only, in theory, this can only give back one result, I would say. Okay. And that's correct. Okay. But if I was going to do that, that doesn't even make sense because I already have user/username. So how would that be any different? That doesn't seem, now you've got two ways to do one thing. And this doesn't actually give you a different number. So I would say eliminate this from your API. Just get rid of that query because it doesn't help you at all. Because I'm just going to do users, user 120. Are you sure that none of the URL safe characters are allowed as usernames though? Because people get creative with their usernames, put emojis in there or whatever, right? So yeah, I'm going to say limit to 2. Page is 1, and it should tell me the number of pages. But I love that it's got consistent output and that there's a deleted field, so I could see that the object in question has been deleted. I would trim that so it only shows the dates and the username, but not any of the other data, whatever the unique identifier is. Not show the email, not show roles. Everything is empty, but you keep deleted there as a placeholder so that it's consistent, permanent, easy to sync. You know, if you want to build an import tool for that, that'd be awesome. Now, I don't know, was there any deleted users? It'd be cool if I could just kind of arbitrarily search on any property. Okay. Now, I don't need to do, this is just a get, that's a patch. It's a profile. What the letter L is a profile? How is a get user different from a get user profile? I guess I'm about to find out. That seems a little confusing to me. Because it looks like we have essentially 3 ways to get what is going to be mostly the same data. All right, let me try this. Oh, and I don't need that anymore. We can just get rid of this. Go to that. Get rid of this. Go to that. Okay, so, oh, and I don't want those V's anymore. Let me get rid of those V's. Why do I still have that dash V in there? And here. And here. Is there any place I need to remove it again? No. Okay. All right. So the difference between the user and the profile is this is just no. If you want to omit properties between the user and the profile, fine. But don't give me a different object between the list of users, a specific user, and a user profile. It's fine to say, and I would call this /user/username/full maybe, or make it a query parameter. Compact or full, or small or full. There's an API that does this that I just looked at recently, where Box. It was actually Box. Box has an API where you can get the mini object or the full object. And the mini object just has the most basic stuff. The created at, the ID, the name, that's it. If you get the full, it'll tell you this is what it belongs to, this is who it's shared with, yada yada. But yeah, don't give me at first. That doesn't make any sense. Oh, because I see what you're doing there. But that doesn't, what display name? Yeah, this is just too confusing. Between these objects are too similar and too different. They should just be the same, and one is a subset of the other. Oh, cool. Private. That makes sense. Yeah, that's good. I'm guessing you're using MySQL, and that's why these are coming out as zeros. Because you're exposing this in an API, you need to change this to output true or false. So you should have some sort of basically a sanitization and normal. I call the methods sanitize and normalize. So sanitize makes it fit for public. Make sure that, for example, if the user's deleted, that all the other properties are trimmed, and make sure that anything that's sensitive, password hash, stuff like that. So I got my sanitize function and I got my normalize function. And the normalize function would take care of issues like this where, because you're using MySQL, you're getting back 0 instead of getting back false. And you could do that both ways. You could do normalize and denormalize, for example. Sway says, I'm gonna go sleep, but thanks for telling me to run from the gorilla and elevate my chi. You are welcome. Yeah. I think that gorilla might be more popular. I'm not sure, but chi is definitely more go-ish. Chi definitely is more in line with the Go proverbs, and people who like Go like Chi. I think people that fall into Go, and I think particularly because Gorilla had so many features so early on in terms of they just built a toolbox and just added everything into it, which is just very much not the Go way. Uh, but they had the WebSockets and the authentication. They just built this whole big framework rather than building component pieces, which there is something to be said for vertical integration, but they just didn't do it. They didn't do it in within line of the philosophy of Go and the way that Go naturally lends itself to working. Now, granted, it was so early on that I don't think that context was around yet. And so the things that they had to do with interfaces maybe were justified at that time. Chi uses the context object, but Chi is just the router. And if you end up using, I think there's another WebSocket implementation that's simpler, but you may end up using the Gorilla WebSocket implementation. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, yes, that's something that might come in handy. I need to be idiomatic and vanilla as I can get because the nature of the problem I want to solve is extra convoluted. Excellent. And then Poopy. Hey, dude, how's your day going? It's going good, thanks. Well, my day is over, and then now it is into my night, but I had a good day. Well, actually, the day it was really hot, and I didn't really have. I had an okay day. I was just really, I had a hard time focusing. Just the garage gets so hot. I should have gone into the office, is what I should have done. But yeah, this is the garage, and it gets hot here. I will have a shed sometime, and I'm looking forward to having that shed. But because then I'll be able to cool it down easier. It's going to be on the other side of the house, so all the heat comes to this side of the house. That side of the house, you don't get until sunset, so it's the cooler side of the house. So anyway, that's going to be nice when that happens. But I did get to go for a ride on my four-wheeler, and that's good. It's good to just kind of blow some steam off. I don't even know if that's the right way to say it because I don't know that I had a lot of steam, but just just getting a more peaceful place. Anyway, thanks for asking. So I'm wrapping up with this. This is predominantly for Mike. So I said I wanted to keep this to an hour and a half. I've kept this to about an hour and a half. I think that I've gone through the things that I was asked to go through. I hope that this feedback is valuable. And let me know where you want me to go from here. If I didn't do the right thing, I'll go ahead and commit this. But if I didn't do the right thing, if the deliverable really should have been and since we've already exposed this, I'm just going to go ahead and copy this. .env. No, this is example.env. There we go. So we're going to add example.env. Examples.sh. Sure. Can add examples.sh. Readme.md. So I'm going to need to learn the POSIX equivalent of the rsync command. There is a way to use CP, but you gotta pass some kind of strange options to it. Example.env. Whoops, no, example.env.env. And actually, I think I need to change this ever so slightly. So this should be if file then B. There we go. I believe that's the way it should be. So dot is the source operator in POSIX shell. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, it is not named source. It is named dot. So we got stuck with that. Anyway, So I hope that this was useful. If this isn't adequate for what I should have done, then let me know and I will try to update accordingly. But I feel like this, hopefully this was more valuable. Whoops, examples.sh. Than just creating the Node app, going through, walking through documentation. I think I exercised everything. Um, but if and yeah, I may have misunderstood because I think eventually or initially I think that you did want something for me to be able to make available as a repository. Thanks for the sub, whoever that was, and I'll answer that question in just a second. But I think you wanted me to make an example that would be available that other people could use that just use the database. But I think that before that happens, I think this is the right step right now. Maybe I am concerned you're already giving this API out to people, but it's only a couple people, right? Just break it. Just break it. Say, hey, I'm sorry. We realized we made some mistakes. And basically, whatever commands you run. So if you can just command line script it, say with SD, so recommended commands. So I'm just going to show you. So you can. I'm going to say here's SD. Oops. Install and use. We're going to go with FD. And these are, I believe both of these are available on Windows, Mac, and Linux. Web install.dev, FD. And then SD. And I'll get to those comments in just a second. So if you take note of what you do to fix some of these things, so you do FD type file extension JS, let's say, and then SD raw string, that's what the S is for, username, and then username, and then maybe you also would want to do a get checkout, say migrations, because you don't actually want to change any of the JS files that are migration files or TS files or whatever it is. I think you can supply multiple of these. So you do -EJS-ETS. So come up with some stuff like this, and then you could give that to your client as well and say, okay, just run this script. And this should, I think that this will work in PowerShell as well, because I believe PowerShell is quasi POSIX, but I think that this would work in PowerShell. So you just give them the website, say, okay, install these two tools, and then run these commands over your code base, and then, this will do much of the refactoring for you or something like that. And then you can have your cake and eat it too. You can do the refactoring, you can make things consistent, but you don't have to worry about too much about inconveniencing your customers. And it's a small API so far, so I think that they'll probably be happy to have that. Okay. Don't commit migrations. Oops. So again, I really do hope that this is really valuable. If it's not, then we'll throw in a little something extra to get it in the right direction for you. I'm just going to call this initial commit. Okay, and I'm done with that. So now let me catch up on a couple of comments, and I'm going to take a break, and then I'm going to come back. I got some other work to do. Is Java alone enough to get started in IT? So IT is typically networking, Linux administration, fixing printers. IT is kind of a broad topic, but IT generally does not include programming. You might do some scripting, you might do some PowerShell or some POSIX shell, but generally IT is you go around a building and you fix problems for individual users on the lower end, or on the upper end, you are architecting solutions for organizational issues, imaging machines, creating the plan possibly for how to deploy patches and security updates. So IT as a field is separate from programming as a field. And I don't recommend Java, but it just depends on what you are trying to do and what your goals are. Java is not the worst language out there. It's better than using something. It's more secure and fairly performant. So it's more secure than, say, C or C++ or Perl or that kind of thing. So, but I always recommend people should learn Go, and I think there's a future in Zig on the horizon. So we'll see where that takes us. But Rust, everybody loves Rust. Rust is really great, but I'm really excited to see where Zig takes us. JavaScript. Well, the problem with JavaScript is, how could I give someone, and until I develop a course for JavaScript, I can't recommend learning JavaScript, because there's no definition to what that is. Everything is JavaScript. Every hokey pokey language under the sun is JavaScript. There's too many transpilers. There's too many paradigms. There's as far as I can tell, there's no longer good resources that I could give to someone and say, here's how to get started with JavaScript and win. We had that back in the day with Douglas Crockford, but I guess people didn't like his personality and they threw the baby out with the bathwater. His personality was right, though. Okay. Anything IT is enough to get into IT. Maybe later you'll add more, but I don't see why you wouldn't. It wouldn't be enough to get started. If ADHD was a language, not a bad description. Points awarded to 2012 Honda Accord for great analogy. But it's the whole committee thing, and it's not just one committee. It's 7 committees. It's what WG, it's JavaScript Foundation. It's which previously Node Foundation, previously CommonJS Foundation. Those kind of are semi-linear. CommonJS was kind of its own thing and kind of got absorbed into Node, but not really. Then you've got the W3C, and you've got TC39. So you have just not quite a dozen different committees that none of whom are involved in I say this all the time. None of whom are involved in each other's work, all going in different directions all the time, all approving standards for all sorts of things. It's a madhouse. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. But I am working on AJScript. So let me just bring this back up real quick. AJScript. I've been thinking, I haven't written down anything yet, but I've been thinking about how to define the grammar. And I think the grammar is going to be very unique, because most grammars, I was talking about this earlier, they are not very specific. They're very, very broad in terms of expression. Expression is the catch-all in most programming grammars, where expression can be a number or a string or a function call or an accessor or a logical permutation of ands and ors, and so on and so on and so forth. So the expression just becomes the catch-all, which is essentially the entire language is expression. And then you define things like if expression and if expression. So if expression, expression. And I think that actually is one of the reasons that ifs have the parentheses, because you can fit an entire program in those parentheses, because if is defined as if open paren, expression, close paren. Whereas Go, you don't need the parens because Go doesn't allow expressions in an if statement. Go has a Boolean expression. An if can only precede a Boolean expression. Therefore, because the grammar of the language is larger and more specific, the language itself is smaller and more contained. And that's one of the tricks that I want to bring into AJScript. And Zig is the same way. Zig if expressions are essentially accessors. An if expression in Zig is not an expression. It is just, well, there you can't do combinatorial expressions in an if in Zig. So you can't do if A and B and C. You can do if I think you can do if greater than A, if A less than, stuff like that. But you are limited to only being able to do a direct Boolean expression, if I remember correctly, in Zig. You can't do combinatorial expressions. Now, Rust, yes. So Rust, you can do if let, which is kind of cool, or is it let if? If is part of the expression. I don't know the right terms, unfortunately, for describing languages, but there is statements versus expressions. Statements, I believe, do not have a return value. If I think that's so, usually an if is a statement, and an if statement can operate on expressions. In Rust, if is an expression, and an expression has a return value, so you can catch the value of an if expression in a variable in Rust. So, all right, that wraps up that little discussion. So, remember, if you like what you like, you get more of what you like. So consider like, sub, follow if you want to. I'll be back on momentarily with another stream after a short break. Join the Discord if you'd like. There's the link in the chat right there. Oh, right there. And I will catch you, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes or so. Oh, and also, Josh, that little tangent there at the end, I think that was a pretty good tangent. I'd love to clip that. I think there might have been another tangent in here somewhere, but I don't remember. Let's see. Was there anything else? Let me scroll back in the comments real quick before I get off. I don't know if the bit about Golang and Chi was long enough to be a clip, but maybe take a look at that and see. Thank you very much. Okay, and with that, I'm out, and I'll be back in a little bit. Maybe I'll start a raid real quick, just for. Let's see. Oh, Jojo Bites on. Absolutely rating. Okay, here we go, gang. Hey, thanks, Pavonis. Good friend Jojo Bite. Okay. Oh, did I do that right? All right. We're creating a raid. 2 viewers are ready. 3. We have 3 viewers ready. Come on. Come on. All right. Well, we're going. Adios, y'all.
It drives me insane. So that looks like a way to get around that. Well, hello there. Thank you for the raid. Cool, AJ. Welcome, welcome.